President Donald Trump has confirmed in no uncertain terms his support of Israel's illegal settlements, including his opposition to UN Security Council Resolution 2334, pertaining to the illegality of the Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. Moreover, by moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and allowing for the expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied territories and beyond, the U.S. President has provided a de facto endorsement of the Greater Israel Project as formulated under the Yinon Plan. Bear in mind this design is not strictly a Zionist project for the Middle East, it is an integral part of U.S. foreign policy, namely Washington's intent to fracture and balkanize the Middle East. Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital is intended to trigger political instability throughout the region. According to the founding father of Zionism Theodor Herzl, the area of the Jewish state stretches from the Brook of Egypt to the Euphrates. According to Rabbi Fissman, the Promised Land extends from the River of Egypt up to the Euphrates. It includes parts of Syria and Lebanon. When viewed in the current context, including the siege on Gaza, the Zionist plan for the Middle East bears an intimate relationship to 2003 invasion of Iraq, the 2006 war on Lebanon, the 2011 war on Libya, the ongoing wars on Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, not to mention the political crisis in Saudi Arabia. The Greater Israel Project consists in weakening and eventually fracturing neighboring Arab states as part of a U.S.-Israeli expansionist project, with the support of NATO and Saudi Arabia. In this regard, the Saudi-Israeli reapproachment is from Netanyahu's viewpoint a means to expanding Israel's spheres of influence in the Middle East as well as confronting Iran. Needless to say, the Greater Israel Project is consistent with America's imperial design. Greater Israel consists in an area extending from the Nile Valley to the Euphrates. According to Stephen Lendman, a near century ago, the World Zionist Organization's plan for a Jewish state included historic Palestine, South Lebanon up to Sidon and the Litani River, Syria's Golan Heights, Oran Plain and Dara, and control of the Hijaz Railway from Dara to Amman, Jordan, as well as the Gulf of Aqaba. Some Zionists wanted more land from the Nile in the west to the Euphrates in the east, comprising Palestine, Lebanon, western Syria, and southern Turkey. The Zionist Project supports the Jewish settlement movement. More broadly, it involves a policy of excluding Palestinians from Palestine, leading to the eventual annexation of both the West Bank and Gaza to the State of Israel. Greater Israel would create a number of proxy states. It would include parts of Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, the Sinai, as well as parts of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. According to Madi Darius Nazmroaya, the Yinon Plan was a continuation of Britain's colonial design in the Middle East. The Yinon Plan is an Israeli strategic plan to ensure Israeli regional superiority. It insists and stipulates that Israel must reconfigure its geopolitical environment through the balkanization of the surrounding Arab states into smaller and weaker states. Israeli strategists viewed Iraq as their biggest strategic challenge from an Arab state. This is why Iraq was outlined as the centerpiece to the balkanization of the Middle East and the Arab world. In Iraq, on the basis of the concepts of the Yinon Plan, Israeli strategists have called for the division of Iraq into a Kurdish state and two Arab states, one for Shiite Muslims and the other for Sunni Muslims. The first step towards establishing this was a war between Iraq and Iran, which the Yinon Plan discusses. The Atlantic, in 2008, and the U.S. Military's Armed Forces Journal, in 2006, both published widely circulated maps that closely followed the outline of the Yinon Plan. Aside from a divided Iraq, which the Biden plan also calls for, the Yinon Plan calls for a divided Lebanon, Egypt, and Syria. The partitioning of Iran, Turkey, Somalia, and Pakistan also all fall into line with these views. The Yinon Plan also calls for dissolution in North Africa and forecasts it as starting from Egypt and then spilling over into Sudan, Libya, and the rest of the region. Greater Israel requires the breaking up of the existing Arab states into small states. The plan operates on two essential premises. To survive, Israel must become an imperial regional power, and must effect the division of the whole area into small states by the dissolution of all existing Arab states. Small here will depend on the ethnic or sectarian composition of each state. Consequently, the Zionist hope is that sectarian-based states become Israel's satellites and, ironically, its source of moral legitimation. This is not a new idea, nor does it surface for the first time in Zionist strategic thinking. Indeed, fragmenting all Arab states into smaller units has been a recurrent theme. Viewed in this context, the war on Syria and Iraq is part of the process of Israeli territorial expansion. In this regard, the defeat of US-sponsored terrorists ISIS, al-Nusra by Syrian forces with the support of Russia, Iran and Hezbollah constitute a significant setback for Israel.